You've seen the movies. The hero wakes up in an empty hospital. The streets are quiet. Maybe there's some dramatic fog rolling through. He grabs a crossbow, finds a leather jacket, and starts his cool, solitary journey through the wasteland. Adorable. Here's what Hollywood conveniently forgot to mention. That guy would be dead in 3 days. Not from zombies, not from raiders, not from some mutant bear with a vendetta. He'd be dead because he didn't understand one fundamental truth about modern civilization. Your city isn't built for you. It's built around you. And the moment the systems that keep it running blink out of existence, that city becomes a weapon pointed directly at your skull. Tonight, we're not talking about fictional apocalypses. We're not talking about EMPs or nuclear war or some virus that turns people into cannibals. We're talking about something far more terrifying. We're talking about Tuesday, a cascading grid failure, a solar flare that fries the transformers, a cyber attack that takes down the eastern seaboard. Pick your poison. The cause doesn't matter. What matters is the result. And in 7 specific American cities, that result is the same: mass death in less than 72 hours. Not because people panic, not because society collapses into chaos, but because of 3 forces that don't care about your survival instincts, your emergency kit, or how many episodes of that prepper show you binged last weekend. Geography, thermodynamics, logistics. These 3 horsemen have been waiting patiently for centuries. Your air conditioning has been holding them at bay. Your interstate highways have been bribing them with diesel fuel. Your grocery stores have been paying them off with just-in-time delivery schedules. But the moment the lights go out, the truce is over. And if you happen to live in one of these 7 cities, you're not a survivor. You're not a prepper. You're not ready. You're inventory. So let's talk about concrete coffins. Let's talk about vertical tombs. Let's talk about the places where modern engineering transforms from your greatest ally into your most efficient executioner. Because knowing where not to be might be the most important survival skill you'll ever learn. The Triad of Collapse. The 3 ways your city wants you dead. Before we start counting down, we need to establish the rules. Not my rules. Physics doesn't negotiate. Biology doesn't take bribes. And logistics? Logistics is the cruelest mistress of them all. See, I didn't pick these cities because I have a grudge against their sports teams. I didn't pick them based on politics, crime rates, or how annoying their drivers are. I picked them based on 3 measurable, quantifiable, absolutely non-negotiable factors that determine whether a city survives a grid-down scenario or becomes an open-air morgue. I call it the Triad of Collapse, and every city on this list fails at least 2 of these tests spectacularly. The first horseman, just-in-time fragility. Here's a fun fact that should keep you up at night. Your local grocery store doesn't stock food. It displays food. There's a difference. Modern supply chains operate on something called just-in-time logistics. It's brilliant, actually. Instead of warehousing months of inventory, which costs money, space, and spoils, stores receive daily shipments that match predicted demand almost perfectly. Your supermarket has, on average, 3 days of food on its shelves at any given moment. 3 days. That's not a buffer. That's not a safety margin. That's a countdown timer with a hair trigger. The moment those trucks stop rolling, whether it's because the fuel pumps aren't working, the highways are gridlocked, or the distribution centers have been abandoned, your city's food supply doesn't dwindle. It evaporates. Day 1. Panic buying clears the shelves of water, bread, and batteries. Day 2. The remaining canned goods and frozen foods disappear. Day 3. People start looking at their neighbors differently. Day 4. Starvation math begins. And here's the kicker. Most major American cities have 0 local agriculture. None. Your food comes from hundreds, sometimes thousands, of miles away. If your city relies entirely on external supply chains and has no fallback, you're not living in a metropolis. You're living in a very complicated mousetrap. The second horseman, Egress mathematics. You've heard of the funnel effect? No? Let me introduce you to the concept that will haunt your commute forever. Take your city's population. Now count the number of outbound highway lanes. Now do some division. If 4 million people try to evacuate on 4 major highways simultaneously, each with 3 lanes, you have 12 lanes carrying 4 million people. That's over 300,000 people per lane. At highway speeds, a single lane can move about 2,000 vehicles per hour. Do the math. At best, you're looking at over 100 hours to clear the population, assuming perfect conditions, no accidents, and everyone maintaining safe following distances. But conditions won't be perfect. There will be accidents. People will run out of gas, tempers will flare, and within hours, sometimes within minutes, those highways transform from escape routes into parking lots. And here's the thing about being stuck in traffic during an apocalypse. Your car isn't transportation anymore. It's a metal coffin with comfortable seats. You can't walk away from it because everything you own is inside. You can't stay in it because you'll run out of water, then patience, then options. Cities with limited egress points, peninsulas, islands, mountain passes, aren't just inconvenient during emergencies. They're death sentences with scenic views. The third horseman, artificial life support. Some cities shouldn't exist. I'm not being philosophical here, I'm being literal. Humans cannot survive in certain environments without technological intervention. Deserts require water to be pumped from hundreds of miles away. Swamps require constant drainage and pest control. Extreme latitudes require heating or cooling systems running around the clock. These cities exist because of electricity, air conditioning, water treatment, pumping stations. The moment that artificial life support system fails, the environment remembers why it was uninhabitable in the first place. And it gets to work correcting that oversight. In the desert, you have 48 hours before dehydration becomes critical. In extreme cold, you have hours before hypothermia sets in. In swampland, disease vectors that were kept at bay by modern sanitation start multiplying. If your city is fighting nature just to maintain baseline survivability and the tools it uses to fight that battle all require electricity, then your city isn't a home. It's a hostage situation where physics is holding the gun. Now, let's talk about the 7 cities where all 3 of these horsemen have already picked out their parking spots. The countdown begins. Number 7 through 4, the slow deaths. Number 7, Miami, Florida. The Peninsula Penitentiary. Miami. Palm trees, Art Deco, beaches that look like screensavers, and a geographic layout that would make a military strategist weep with joy if they were trying to trap a population, not save one. Look at a map of South Florida. Really look at it. To your east, the Atlantic Ocean. Unless you've got a boat and a very optimistic understanding of maritime navigation, that's a wall. To your west, the Everglades. Hundreds of square miles of swamp, alligators, and terrain that swallows vehicles like appetizers. That's not an escape route. That's a suicide mission with extra steps. To your south, the Florida Keys. A string of islands connected by a single highway that's already bumper to bumper on a normal weekend. In an emergency, that's not an option. That's a punchline, which leaves one direction, north. Up the I-95 corridor, one highway, 6 million people in the greater Miami area. Do the math. Actually don't. I already did, and the answer is you're not getting out. When Hurricane Irma threatened in 2017, the evacuation took over 12 hours, and that was with days of advance warning and most of the infrastructure still functioning. In a sudden grid-down scenario, with no traffic lights, no fuel pumps, no coordination, you're not evacuating. You're participating in the world's largest parking lot experiment. And while you're sitting there in your car, watching the gas gauge drop and the temperature rise, you'll have plenty of time to contemplate the other delightful features of a grid-down Miami. The complete absence of potable water once the pumping stations fail, the rapid spoilage of every refrigerated item in a city that averages 85 degrees with 90% humidity, and the various subtropical diseases that have been waiting patiently for modern sanitation to take a coffee break. Miami isn't a death trap because of crime or chaos. It's a death trap because of coastline. Geography doesn't negotiate. Number 6, Phoenix, Arizona, the oven with HOA fees. Phoenix is proof that humans will live anywhere if you add enough swimming pools and outlet malls. This is a city built in a desert, not near a desert, not on the edge of a desert, in the middle of one. The Sonoran Desert specifically, where summer temperatures regularly exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit and occasionally flirt with 120. Under normal circumstances, this is fine. Uncomfortable maybe, but survivable. Because every building in Phoenix is essentially a refrigeration unit with furniture. The entire city runs on air conditioning the way other cities run on coffee. Now imagine the AC stops. Within hours, the interior temperature of modern buildings starts climbing toward ambient. And ambient in Phoenix is hot enough to cook an egg on the sidewalk for about 4 months of the year. Here's a number that should concern you. 120 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 50 degrees Celsius. That's the interior temperature of a modern glass and steel building in Phoenix within 48 hours of the grid going down during summer. At that temperature, your body cannot cool itself through sweating. You're generating heat faster than you can dissipate it. Your core temperature rises, your organs start to fail. This isn't discomfort, this is biological shutdown. The elderly and children go first. People with health conditions follow, then everyone else. And here's the cruel joke. You can't escape outdoors either, because outside is where the problem started. You're trapped between a building that's become a slow cooker and an environment that's always been one. Water becomes the bottleneck. Phoenix's water supply comes from a series of canals and reservoirs that require, you guessed it, electrical pumps to function. When those stop, the taps go dry within days. Phoenix exists because of engineering hubris. It survives because of constant, massive energy expenditure. The moment that energy stops flowing, the desert reminds everyone why it was empty for 10,000 years. Thermodynamics doesn't forgive. Number 5. Honolulu, Hawaii. Alcatraz with better branding, paradise. That's what the tourism board calls it. White sand beaches, tropical breezes, Mai Tais at sunset. What the tourism board neglects to mention is that Honolulu is the most isolated major population center on planet Earth. The nearest continental landmass is over 2,000 miles away. 2,000 miles of open ocean. That's not a commute. That's an expedition. Now consider this. 90% of Hawaii's food is imported, not produced locally and supplemented with imports. Imported. Almost all of it arrives by cargo ship. In a global supply chain disruption, not even a collapse, just a disruption, those ships stop coming. Maybe it's a port strike. Maybe it's a fuel shortage. Maybe it's the cascading failures that would accompany a major grid down event on the mainland. Doesn't matter why. What matters is what happens next. 72 hours. That's how long before store shelves are empty. And unlike Miami or Phoenix, there's no neighboring state to drive to. There's no head for the countryside option. There's no walk out if you have to fallback plan. You're on an island, a beautiful, tropical, horrifyingly isolated island, with nearly 1 million other people, all of whom are about to get very, very hungry. The concept of bugging out doesn't exist in Hawaii. Where would you go? The next island over has the same problem. The ocean is not your friend. It's a 2,000-mile moat. Honolulu isn't a death trap because of violence or disaster. It's a death trap because of distance. Logistics doesn't make exceptions for paradise. Number 4. Chicago, Illinois, the vertical freezer. We need to talk about timing. Because a grid-down scenario in Chicago in July is a problem. A grid-down scenario in Chicago in January is a death sentence written in ice. Chicago's average January temperature hovers around 25 degrees Fahrenheit. That's -4 Celsius for anyone who prefers their hypothermia measured metrically. Now imagine you live in one of Chicago's many high-rise buildings. You're on the 40th floor. Nice view. Great amenities. Absolutely zero chance of survival if the heat goes out. Modern skyscrapers are sealed environments. They don't have windows that open. They don't have fireplaces. They don't have any passive heating systems whatsoever. They rely entirely on HVAC systems powered by the grid. When that grid fails in winter, several things happen in rapid succession. First, the temperature inside starts dropping. Within hours, it's uncomfortable. Within a day, it's dangerous. Within 2 days, your apartment is the same temperature as outside, and outside is below freezing. Second, the water pipes freeze and burst. Congratulations, now you have no running water and potential flooding on the floors below you. Third, the elevators stop. You're 40 floors up with no way down except stairs. And those stairs are going to be crowded with everyone else in the building having the same realization at the same time. Fourth, you realize that everything you own is useless. Your electric stove doesn't work, your lights don't work, your heating doesn't work. You're sitting in a very expensive refrigerator. Chicago's density makes it worse. Over 2.7 million people in the city proper, millions more in the suburbs. All of those high-rises, all of those apartment buildings, all of those people suddenly in the same situation. And the roads? I mentioned Egress mathematics earlier. Chicago has some of the worst traffic in America on a normal day. In an emergency winter evacuation, with accidents piling up, with fuel pumps offline, with visibility compromised by weather, that's not an evacuation. That's a frozen parking lot. Chicago isn't dangerous because of anything it does. It's dangerous because of when it does it. And now we need to have an uncomfortable conversation. Suburb delusion. Why your cul-de-sac won't save you. Right about now, some of you are feeling pretty good. You're thinking, I don't live downtown. I don't live in a high-rise. I'm out in the suburbs. Nice quiet neighborhood. Good schools. HOA keeps the lawns looking tidy. I'll be fine. I hate to be the one to tell you this, but your suburb isn't a sanctuary. It's a target. Let me introduce you to a concept called the golden hour. In emergency medicine, the golden hour refers to the critical first 60 minutes after a traumatic injury where intervention has the greatest chance of preventing death. In urban collapse scenarios, the golden hour refers to something different but equally important. You have approximately 60 minutes from the moment a major grid down event occurs to evacuate the metropolitan area before the chaos spreads. That's it. 60 minutes. In that first hour, most people are confused, disoriented, trying to figure out what happened. They're checking their phones, which don't work. They're trying to call family, which they can't. They're waiting for someone to tell them what to do. That hour is your window. After that, the realization sets in. And when people realize that help isn't coming, that this isn't a temporary outage, that the systems they depend on have truly failed, they start moving. And guess where they move? Out of the cities, into the suburbs, toward anywhere that might have resources, space, food. Your suburb isn't protected by distance. Your suburb is protected by the assumption that the city will keep functioning. When that assumption breaks, you're not isolated, you're next. The first wave comes looking for resources. They're scared, desperate, willing to take what they need because their children are hungry and their options are gone. The second wave comes because they heard the first wave found something. The third wave doesn't bother asking. Your nice suburb with its stocked pantries and its working vehicles and its families who prepared for a 3-day camping trip but not for the end of routine. Your suburb becomes the path of least resistance for every desperate person flowing out of the urban core. That's the math. That's the reality. The suburbs aren't far enough to be remote. They're not defended enough to be secure. They're just close enough to be convenient. And convenience, in a collapse, is another word for vulnerability. So no, you can't just sit this out in your cul-de-sac. You either leave before the golden hour expires or you become part of the landscape that the wave sweeps over. Now let's talk about the top 3, the places where even the suburbs can't save you. The top 3. The impossible scenarios. Number 3. Las Vegas, Nevada. The mirage that swallowed 2 million people. Las Vegas exists because someone looked at a dry lake bed in the middle of the Mojave Desert and thought, you know what this needs? Casinos. And somehow, through sheer audacity and massive infrastructure investment, it worked. For a while, over 2 million people now live in the Las Vegas metropolitan area. 2 million people in one of the harshest environments in North America. And every single one of them is alive because of a single engineering project that most of them have never thought about. The Hoover Dam. Most people know the Hoover Dam as a tourist attraction or a marvel of 1930s engineering. What most people don't realize is that it's also the only thing standing between Las Vegas and complete irreversible collapse. The dam generates about 4 billion kilowatt hours of electricity per year. That powers the pumping stations that move water from Lake Mead into the Las Vegas water system. That powers the air conditioning that makes the desert survivable. That powers, quite literally, everything that keeps Las Vegas alive. When the grid goes down, Las Vegas doesn't slowly decline. It doesn't have a gradual reduction in services. It stops. Water pressure drops to 0 within days. Air conditioning becomes a memory. The temperature inside the casinos, those massive windowless structures designed to keep you gambling, not to keep you alive, becomes unsurvivable. And unlike Phoenix, which at least has some connection to external resources, Las Vegas is isolated. The surrounding desert isn't just hostile, it's empty. There's nothing between Vegas and the nearest habitable zone but hundreds of miles of sand, scrub, and heat that will kill you faster than starvation will. Las Vegas imports everything: food, water, power, even the dirt for its golf courses. It's a completely artificial ecosystem, a closed system that requires constant external input to maintain. When that input stops, the equation is simple. 2 million people, 0 resources. Dehydration kills in 3 days. In the desert, it can kill faster. Las Vegas isn't a city, it's a magic trick. And when the power goes out, the trick ends and everyone realizes they've been standing in the middle of nowhere the entire time. Number 2. New York City, New York. The island of 16 million regrets, Manhattan. The heart of global commerce, the financial capital of the world. A tiny island packed with more people per square inch than almost anywhere else on Earth. 1.6 million people live on Manhattan Island. During a workday, that number swells to over 4 million. All of them on an island roughly 2 miles wide and 13 miles long, connected to the outside world by bridges and tunnels. Think about that for a moment. Every single person on that island got there by crossing water, by bridge, by tunnel, by ferry. There is no other way on or off. In a grid-down scenario, those bridges and tunnels become the only things that matter. And historically, in moments of crisis, the first thing authorities do is control those choke points. It happened during the 1977 blackout. It happened after 9/11. It will happen again. When chaos erupts on the island, and in a prolonged grid failure, chaos is guaranteed. The bridges get closed. Not out of malice, but out of mathematics. You cannot have 4 million people trying to cross 6 bridges simultaneously. The structure won't hold. The flow won't work. People will die on the bridges themselves, crushed, trampled, fallen, so they close them. Contain the situation. Wait for order to be restored. But in a true grid-down scenario, order isn't coming back. Not soon. Not in time. And suddenly, everyone on Manhattan Island realizes they're trapped. The subway? Useless. A network of dark tunnels flooding with groundwater now that the pumps have failed. Anyone caught underground when the lights went out is in a nightmare that doesn't have a rescue at the end. The streets? Gridlocked instantly. In Manhattan, there's nowhere for traffic to go in normal conditions. In an emergency, it becomes a metal canyon of stalled vehicles. The buildings? Vertical extensions of the problem. No water above the 6th floor once the pumps fail. No way up or down except stairs. Millions of people in skyscrapers, each floor becoming a less survivable space than the one below it. In the food supply, Manhattan is a food desert in the truest sense. There's no agriculture, no reserves, just restaurants and bodegas that will be empty within hours and 1.6 million people who are very, very far from their next meal. Being trapped on Manhattan during a grid collapse isn't about surviving until help arrives. It's about accepting that help isn't coming and everyone around you is making the same realization. Density is efficiency in good times. In bad times, density is a multiplication factor for disaster. Number 1. Los Angeles, California. The firebowl. And here it is. The top of the list. The place that fails every test in the Triad of Collapse so thoroughly that it's almost impressive. Los Angeles. City of Angels. Entertainment capital of the world. And the single most dangerous place to be in America when the grid fails. Let's start with water, because water is where everything falls apart. Los Angeles has almost 4 million people in the city proper, over 10 million in the county, 18 million in the greater metropolitan area, and it gets 85% of its water from somewhere else. Not some of its water, not supplemental water. The vast majority of every drop that comes out of a Los Angeles faucet was pumped, transported, and delivered from hundreds of miles away. The California Aqueduct, the Colorado River Aqueduct, the Los Angeles Aqueduct, massive engineering projects that require massive pumping stations that require massive amounts of electricity. When the grid fails, those pumps stop. And when those pumps stop, Los Angeles starts dying of thirst. But here's where it gets worse, so much worse. Los Angeles is built on a tinderbox. The surrounding chaparral, the Santa Ana winds, the chronic drought conditions, this is an ecosystem that wants to burn. Every year, fires sweep through the region. Every year, they get worse. And every year, the only thing standing between those fires and the urban core is the firefighting infrastructure, which runs on water, which requires pumps, which need electricity. You see where this is going. In a grid-down scenario, fire hydrants have no pressure, fire stations have no water, and the fires, which will absolutely start, whether from accidents, unattended stoves, or something more deliberate, have nothing to stop them. Now combine that with the egress problem. Los Angeles has the worst traffic in America, the worst, on a normal day, with all the infrastructure working. When 10 million people try to leave simultaneously, with no traffic lights, with fires spreading, with roads blocked by accidents and abandoned vehicles, with fuel pumps offline, that's not evacuation, that's a firestorm with an audience. The Santa Ana winds blow from the desert toward the coast. They push fires westward, toward the population centers, toward the gridlocked highways, toward the people who thought they had time to escape. Los Angeles doesn't just fail the Triad of Collapse. It demonstrates why the Triad exists in the first place. No water, no way out, no margin for error. A city of 18 million people, built on arrogance, maintained by infrastructure that exists on a knife's edge, and absolutely catastrophically unprepared for the day that edge cuts. When the lights go out in Los Angeles, the city burns, and there will be nowhere to run and nothing to run to and no one coming to put out the flames. The final punch, the choice. So there it is, 7 cities. 7 different ways that modern engineering and geographic reality conspire to create perfect killing zones the moment our carefully balanced systems tip over. Miami's Peninsula Funnel, Phoenix's thermodynamic trap, Honolulu's island isolation, Chicago's vertical freezer, Vegas's desert mirage, New York's island cage, Los Angeles's firebowl. None of these cities are inherently evil. None of them were designed to kill their inhabitants. They're just places where the margin between civilization and catastrophe is razor thin, and the safety nets we've built are made of electricity and diesel fuel. You might be wondering what the takeaway is here. What's the actionable advice? What's the survival strategy? It's simple, and it's uncomfortable. If you live in one of these places, your strategy cannot be shelter in place, cannot be wait for FEMA, cannot be hope the government fixes it. Your strategy has to be preemptive evacuation. You have to leave before the news tells you to, before the authorities make announcements, before everyone else realizes what's happening. Because by the time it's obvious that you need to leave, it's already too late. The golden hour has expired. The highways are parking lots, the bridges are closed, the window has shut. This means having a plan, a real plan. Not a vague notion that you'll figure it out. A physical destination more than a tank of gas away. A route that avoids the obvious choke points. A trigger point, a specific condition that when met causes you to execute the plan immediately without waiting for confirmation. It means accepting that you might bug out over a false alarm. That you might feel foolish driving to your uncle's farm because the power went out for what turned out to be a blown transformer. Better to feel foolish than to feel nothing at all. The cities aren't death traps because people are stupid. They're death traps because people are optimistic. They believe things will work out. They believe the systems will hold. They believe someone will come to help. Sometimes they're right, but when they're wrong, when the grid truly fails and the trucks stop rolling and the pumps go silent, being wrong costs everything. You can't change where you live overnight. You can't move out of Los Angeles tomorrow, but you can know the risks. You can make plans. You can understand that your city's beauty and convenience come at a price, and that price becomes due the moment the lights go out. Geography doesn't negotiate. Thermodynamics doesn't forgive. Logistics doesn't make exceptions, but you can make choices, while there's still time to make them. The question is, will you? Or will you be one of the millions who realize too late that their city was never their home? It was just the place they were standing when the music stopped and there weren't enough chairs. The collapse isn't coming. The collapse is always one bad day away. It has been for decades. The only variable is whether you're ready when that day arrives. So, are you?